right. Thank you. Thank you all for joining the webinar with uLaw this afternoon. It's 27th May, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be looking at everything practice management as today's topic that is entitled for 1 hour CPD credits in the provinces across Ontario, New Brunswick, British Columbia, and Alberta. All right, so the most keen and interested topic that everyone is looking for, and it covers quite a few, I would say quite a vast range of subtopics that you see here in front of the screen. Professional obligations that as a legal practitioner, one is required to fulfill, right from intaking a client to managing the files, the financial obligations, business management, time, professional management, as well as personal management. These are some important subtopics that we are going to be covering in the next probably 55 minutes. I will definitely try to pause a couple of times to see if you all have any questions or if there's any technical difficulty hearing me. Please feel free to put on the chat. Our support staff is available. And if there's anything that you need us to repeat, I would definitely come back to the chats in the end and try to explain the details that we're going to be discussing over the next 55 minutes. Awesome. So this session, importantly, is going to be recorded. It will be available on our YouTube platform as early as Monday morning. You could definitely take a look at it, and if you have any questions, email us on support@uLawPractice.com. This is for both our existing clients or any other non-uLaw clients that are attending the webinar today. You could feel free to email us on support or info at any time. And if you would like to know how to get the CPD credits, you will have to just log into your Law Society portal, state the title as Everything Practice Management to avail the 1 hour professional sum CPD credits. All right, so the topic today, as we all know, is completely focusing on the practice management as a legal practitioner. What are the steps that you will have to take right from intaking a client, which we're going to be seeing in the upcoming slides. So there's a little bit more than just entering or recording the client information in your database. Could be if you're using a manual database like a spreadsheet or a like a specific contact sheet that you're using, or if you're using a practice management program like uLaw, you have a different method or a specific method to record the client intake process, where you either use the client portal available, or you could just add the client information directly like the old school method with adding new clients and new contacts and proceed with doing the basic step of intaking the client information. Upon doing that, you are eligible to get the details from your client in regards to their ID proof, which would be the client ID verification, and a very important document that you are required to collect as part of the Law Society compliance for a client or a contact management. So there are various, I would say, stages that as a legal practitioner, you will need to fulfill certain obligations laid out by Law Society, right from a contact management perspective to a file management aspect of it going to the financial management, which is the most important of all. But at each stages, right from in taking a client and communicating with them and to completing the the client intake process, which includes verifying their ID and then completing the conflict check, everything is equally important in order to fulfill the standards that Law Society lays out, depending upon whether, like I already mentioned, whether you're doing it manually. If you're doing it manually, make sure to templatize your documents and have it in a folder so that, and you have a client walking into your office or contacting you on phone or through your social media websites, or it could be email, you know that the first step that you have to do in order to contact the client and take it further would be doing these step number 1, 2, 3, 4, that is sending them a client intake form, receiving their client ID verification, completing their conflict check, and fulfilling the preliminary obligations before you proceed with opening a file. Now, if you're using a practice management, you will need not have to worry about maintaining their templates, the respective templates that I just mentioned. Whereas if you're using a program like uLaw or any other software, uLaw allows you to do the client intake using their portal, then which will save a lot of your time, as clients are going to enter their information, personal information themselves online, submit it online. You get to start your preliminary Law Society compliance work behind client ID verification and client intake. So between a practice management software or doing it manually, you will have to ensure these preliminary obligations are fulfilled. Moving on, you have file management here, which is specifically where your role of, probably opening a file or a matter, both are synonym here. When I refer to a file, it's also a matter, or vice versa. And you will have to ensure that the preliminary details for a file or a matter is also obtained, and you are able to complete entering the details of the files. Like, for example, you have, that the client is reaching out to you for a specific matter, and what is going to be the file number or a unique client ID, or in terms of any of these other, code or easier cross-indexing that would help you drill down the details of a file or a matter to the level when the conflict check is performed. This could be showing up, the details that you're adding while you open a file shows up on the conflict check document as well. Now, to store conflict check on the file management, it's very important. You can, if you are using, again, the manual method of practice management, as in like you have your own ways and means of storing documents. You create subfolders for each client on your drive or your desktop, and you maintain the checklist of these documents. Or if you're using a practice management like uLaw allows you to store the documents upon creating a file or a matter for each of the clients in the database. This will allow you to have all the documents handy under the matter itself, and you would not need to look up anywhere for them. Ability to record interaction is very important as part of the file management, where you are going to be having a correspondence with a client. Could be an initial meeting with a client before you get a retainer, or before you get a probably start the engagement. You will have to jot down those details. You could either use your own tracker system at your end manually, Or again, if you're using a software, you could use this tracker system that's available within the matter for each file, where you have a timer tracker system to click on and then enter, start the timer. And then once you're done with your initial client meeting or a correspondence call with your client, you could just turn it off and then click on docket to enter it as a method to record the interaction with the client. Besides this, for a file management, I believe personally, as well as from the experience that I've worked with many of the legal practitioners, cross-indexing is one thing that helps you to keep a track and maintain a clear database on whether, there are any conflicts, could be with your additional parties, is there anything that could be brought up while doing conflict check, anything like that could be the best. So please remember, when you're opening a file or opening a matter, rather, it is very, very important to fill in the basic details, like the unique name of the file or the matter that you want to give, whether it is a small claims case or whether it's a LTB case, or could be anything to do with a criminal file or criminal case. You will have to give it like a nice nickname or elaborate it over a couple of words, and try to give that file or matter a unique name followed by a code or an ID, and describe the matter in the specific one line, understanding that this is what the client has reached out to you for. So these are some things that will enhance your file management and will typically allow you to look up for the file or the conflict in no time. Now, moving on to the third aspect of professional obligation, financial management is definitely the most important part of maintaining the database. When I mean financial management, it includes right from receiving the retainer or receiving like probably if you're not having a trust account, if you're doing something directly into general, how do you go about it? Whether you're going to be sending them retainer letter or whether you're going to be sending them like an engagement letter, you are going to be either having those templates ready as part of your templates if you're doing things manually, or if you're doing again through software, the software enables you to generate these documents in no time. Like, for example, uLaw has everything that you need for fulfilling, let's say, a retainer letter that you can modify according to the needs. And you could enter the trust amount that you're requesting from the client as part of the retainer to stop the work. Or on the other hand, if you're not using a trust account, if you're using an operating account, making sure that you raise an invoice for the work done, you record the dockets, you record the disbursements, you raise an invoice, and then you send the invoice to the client in order to fulfill the work done at your end, and send the piece of paper to the client saying this is what they owe you, and they pay you into your general account. How do you record that in your database, either in the client ledger or in the program under the file or the matter for the client? So financial management starts right from the time you collect a retainer or accept a client payment into the general account directly. And the obligations that you would be fulfilling is right from sending out a retainer letter or an engagement letter to giving them a receipt for the money that you've received. Could be a retainer receipt, or if they pay you into general account, give them a payment receipt, because the receipts act as the proof behind the money that you have received. And it also goes into the file where you can very easily make a note as to what the client has paid you so far and what the client owes you moving forward, if there's any. Adding to it, if there's any other information in terms of disbursements, you would like to mention it on your retainer letter or your engagement letter, and very clearly mention how are you going to be using those retainers or the money that comes into your general account, and how would you be dispersing money either from trust or general respectively if you're having to pay any disbursements on behalf of your client. So these are some things that fall under financial management. And moving on, I'm going to be talking about business management. As much as we all love maintaining our client records, I really believe the other important aspect of it is about maintaining your business records, your business information as to what was your office expenses from the day you opened your office. Could be even before you had a practice management solution, or even before your income started flowing in, because we all know that even before you have any income from the client, or rather we have any source of income coming in from the legal work that you've done, we tend to have expenditures in the form of establishing your own practice. Right at this time, I would say you could have incurred your law society expenses, or you could have incurred any business setup cost, could be with opening your bank accounts, the bank monthly fees, or things like you're setting up your office, and etc. So these are some things that needs to be recorded as part of your business management, and like how important it is to maintain the financial records for your client. It is definitely as equally important for maintaining the business management. Now, in regards to the last three components that we are seeing here is for a professional management, time management, and personal management. These are relatively smaller subtopics, but even though they're as important as it is to maintain yourself with a professional management and personal management into keeping yourself compliant for a law society as per the law society obligations or guidelines. Now, I will jump into detail with these slides. If you all have any questions, I hope you're able to relate to my examples, the subtopics that I'm covering today. If there's anything, I request you to put out on the chat, or probably send us an email after the session, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Today's topic, I'm repeating again, is eligible for 1 hour CPD credits by Law Society of Ontario, New Brunswick, Alberta, and British Columbia. And the topic for today is everything practice management, and you're entitled for 1 hour professionalism CPD credits. Now, I'm jumping into the slides in detail, talking about professional obligations when it comes to client intake, service, and communication. So when it comes to client intake, how is it applying towards your practice on a daily basis, right from recording your consultation calls that comes into your office through either your website or social media, and right from that point where a prospective client reaches out to you, capturing the critical information, and which is definitely the name and the contact, and asking them to fill in the client intake form, which is definitely going to contain all the details of the client, and then proceeding with whether you are going to be, whether going ahead with retaining them for services. At that time, when you do the conflict check for confidential information, as you see here, is when you will be able to decide whether you're proceeding with this file or this matter or not. So at that time, you could very, smoothly take a decision, send your client a correspondence saying thank you or no thank you, depending upon whether the status of the conflict check, you could tell them, tell them sorry, or I'm ready, whether I'm taking you as a client or I'm referring you, since there's a conflict, I'm referring you to my friend, or you just tell them politely that unfortunately you're not able to do the needful or fulfill the obligations here and proceed further. So now, if it happens to be that you're taking their file upon you and starting their work, what are the subsequent things that you would have to fulfill as part of the professional obligations? Number one, of course, you've already done the conflict check, so I would say number two, determine whether this work is going to be a retainer-based work or an engagement-based work, where you're going to send them either a retainer letter with the details laid out clearly that we discussed in the first 5-10 minutes, or you send them an engagement letter saying that they're engaging you for the services, and you will be probably entitled to point number 1, 2, 3, tell them everything that is part of your responsibilities and or your scope of work, and also give them their responsibilities or the obligations as a client for them to fulfill, in the sense if there's any correspondence that you will need to get from their end, you're going to be letting them know that within probably 24 hours or 48 hours, you lay out all these rules or these responsibilities very clearly under your retainer letter or engagement letter. That is going to be basically when you're going to be determining your fees, the structure in which you're going to be entering them into your client's ledgers. Now, if they are going to be depositing retainers, whether you have a trust account, whether it's been probably in the nature and scope that is laid out by Law Society, ensuring that you have everything clear to avoid any lack of clarity here, because some clients, make mistakes by, entering or giving the retainer into your general account if you have already given them the account number for both the accounts. So when you are giving them the engagement letter or retainer letter, you probably have to be very clear in letting them know that the initial retainer comes into the trust, and anything subsequent after you bill them can go into your general account. So that way there is no confusion here. So when you're opening your bank, that is, as a new entrepreneur, this is one thing I always tell people or the legal practitioners, to ensure that your trust, your operating, if you have a business credit card, everything is obliged to the rules and regulations laid out by the Law Society, especially handling the trust funds, how as a legal practitioner you're receiving funds into trust. If you're receiving cash, whether it is being deposited into your trust account within the first 24 hours. And you are also obliged to give them a retainer receipt, and just ensuring that there's no conflict here when you're receiving the retainer, and then proceeding with depositing retainers into trust accounts. And if not, if you find there's a conflict and for some reason you're not proceeding with the matter or the file that you've opened at a certain stage, you should ensure that the last point here that says clearly providing letters for non-engagement is as equivalent as it is for, providing an engagement letter if you're retaining them for services. So these are some important points to be noted down if you're having to fulfill client intake, service, and communication, and it's in accordance with your law society obligations. Moving on to the next important part of it, we are still continuing the client intake service here. And when you're creating a retainer agreement, make sure that I've already mentioned to include the nature and scope of work. Nature and scope of work in the sense whether these are some things that you want the client to follow, and you make the communication super clear there. And the client's responsibilities with scheduling and course of representation. If you want the client to come in for a court hearing, or for, maybe now that the courts are opening, whether online or in person, you have to ensure that you lay out these responsibilities under the scope and nature and responsibilities of yourself and your client very clearly. And how often would you like to communicate with your client, and the method in which you wish your client to communicate with you, because some people like phone, some people like email, some people would like to book an appointment through their website and then do it. So the method and the frequency of communication should also be laid out in the retainer agreement that you're giving them, and the other retainer arrangements, whether you're getting it into your trust through check or through an email transfer, because some trust accounts allow email transfers, some do not. It depends on the bank. So whether you're receiving a check or the method of payment, the retainer arrangements should be very, important to be noted here. And if you're using the manual method, but nowadays we have the technology playing an important role where I would say getting those payments through payment collection apps. You have several payment collection apps today, like LawPay, Pivotal, Newway. In fact, we have a separate webinar on that. But yeah, coming back in track, I think those payment collection portals are very helpful in terms of collecting payments into trust directly, which saves you a lot of time. When you send your client a retainer agreement, you just send a tiny little link on the retainer agreement, and they just click on it and pay it, and you get the money into your trust account. So it completely depends on the retainer arrangements that you are mentioning on your retainer agreement. And then the termination details, in case for some reason that the things are not working out, and as you saw, everything needs to be mentioned on the agreement, and the confidentiality and the risks that's associated with the method of communication in case you have a website, or if you're conversing through social media, or if you have the documents that you're collecting from your client and entering it on or keeping it on probably a database like Google Drive, OneDrive. You will have to probably let them know, or definitely let them know about all the risks that's associated with certain methods of communication. So these are definitely very important for you to follow as part of the client matter management. I would say it takes care of almost 30 to 40% of your work in that specific few tasks that we discussed in the last 30 minutes. All right, so I'm moving on quickly to file management. We've spent quite a time looking at the client matter management. So when it comes to file management, Where are we in terms of maintaining the file information? When I mean file, it is also matter, right? For each of the clients that you create or you intake, you assign a matter or a file to them, because you will have to do certain responsibilities. You will have to address certain responsibilities in a matter for a client by having a checklist. This is something I am very keen to make kind of make an emphasis here and say file checklist for every incoming matter is important. If you are doing things manually, you have a nice checklist in a folder created for a client where you are supposed to receive the communications and the time dockets or the flat rate dockets that you are supposed to make a note of. And for each file, you create a respective matter. So this could be especially in cases where the client comes to you for a multiple files or a multiple matters, where it could be in terms, for example, let's take real estate. The same client goes for the sale and purchase with you. So you will create a separate file for sale, finish their sale, and then you would also do their purchase. So you don't have to literally create two clients here, but two times the same client rather, but to have one client with two matters, separate files for each respective matter, and everything being chronologically organized, whether it is electronic method of filing or your paper method, or your could be using the software or desktop, whichever that you're using, making sure they're chronologically organized and secured with the platforms that you're using. I would also say making personal recording of client interactions is very helpful when it comes to docketing with the descriptions. Some clients like to have more information from their legal practitioners, like this is the work they have done. So keeping a personal record under notes or under a scratch pad system that you're using. Now, if you're using something like uLaw, you will have a scratch pad system where you're trying to have 2-3 calls with 2-3 different clients at the same time. And the scratchpad feature is such a boon where you can record everything at the same time, including the notes, like the personal recording of client interactions that you made this morning or whenever you're on a call with them. And the proper organization through cross-indexing, where you give a unique code to the client as well as this matter specific, because the client could have several matters like we just discussed, but the indexing should be pertaining to the matter specific level. And I would say this is definitely something that will ensure that you are going to be staying safe in terms of not mixing any information between the same clients but different matters. Now, that's about file management. And moving on to financial management, I would like to, before we go into the major chunk that we're all looking out for, the financial management by itself is a super important subtopic of all that we are discussing now. I'd like to, request you all to take a minute to tell me if you have anything on the chat window. My support staff is here. If you have any questions, we could take it in. We have some links that are being entered here for you to refer. Could be for your own reference or for your friends. These are some useful links from uLaw. Please do look at them after the session. And if you have any questions, I would say do let us know, and I would take the chats towards the end. All right, so today's session on everything practice management, entitled for 1-hour CPD credits across Ontario, New Brunswick, Alberta, and British Columbia. And right now we are almost 35 minutes done with the webinar. Moving into the most important aspect of today's topic, financial management. So how it is applied to a matter in terms of having the finances, whether the perspective on having the trust or the general combined, or at least using one of your bank accounts. Some people use only trust. Some people use trust in general with a balance, like, get the retainer in trust and get the remaining funds after raising the invoice into general, vice versa, where you will be able to make a track of keep a track of records or of payments that you receive into your respective accounts. So it starts ideally with receiving a retainer after your engagement letter or the retainer letter being sent, and the deposit for this retainer for the matter specific being entered into your trust, and that in turn being utilized against either your billable time or the flat rate docket that you're going to be making. And then sometimes there's going to be some disbursements, and whether you're going to be utilizing the retainer that you received into your trust against only the legal fees or a partial disbursement also, or whether you're going to be using your own pocket or the general account for making the disbursements and later on collecting or getting it refunded by your client into trust or general respectively. These are some important points here for you to ensure that you plan the finances related to the file or a matter right before you begin the work, or at least at the time you begin the work, and communicate it to the client appropriately, so that if there's any discrepancy here in terms of collecting the payments, you could resolve it before you finalize an invoice, or before you make a trust transfer, or before you collect a payment into general account. So proper fee scheduling of hourly rate, recording billable time in the respective timesheets that you maintain. Some people maintain their timesheets manually, and if you're using, again, a practice management solution like uLaw, you have various ways where you can turn on the timer from the matter, or you can turn on the timer from the calendar under the Scratchpad system that I just spoke 5 minutes ago. And you could record the time if it's a billable time, or you could just simply do a flat rate and keep the client files and their accounting systems up to date. Now, by doing this, you are ensuring that the deposit that you have collected as a retainer is being put to use effectively by recording the the invoiceable amounts that you are going to be raising, or the billable amounts that you're going to be raising under invoice. And if you have any new clients, that takes typically a little longer time to pay, could be for certain reasons that they take maybe slightly longer time than the duration you've provided, you could ensure that the invoice balance report can be printed if you're using a program like this, like uLaw or any other system. You could ensure that you generate like an invoice balance report. After you raise an invoice, it gives you all your matters together to see whether you have any outstanding from the client. Now, prompt transmission and delivery of invoices to client within specified time, invoice detailing payment terms, etc., should be sent out in order to complete two important obligations after you raise an invoice. Is if you have money sitting in trust, move it from trust to general. So sending an invoice to client fulfills the obligation where you can move the money from client from your trust account for this client to your general account, and or if you're not working on a retainer basis, you can accept the payment directly into your general account. Along with it, you have a systematic tracking of overpayments on accounts. You have to ensure if there's anything overpaid into your trust or into your general, keep a tab on it and ensure you refund it from the respective bank account. It could be overpaid into trust or general respectively, but ensure it to be recorded and moved back only from that respective bank account. Now, it's not like you receive excess money into trust, but you refund them from general, right? It has to follow your bank. It has to always go out and, it has to come in and go out from the respective banks that you've received the excess funds into, and recording of general account to the general receipts and disbursement entries are like 2-in-1, because you record your general accounts money that you're spending under the MAT or specific, but you still end up using your clients' invoices and general receipts and disbursements that you've made to probably let them know these are the expenses you incurred on behalf of them. And maintenance of original bank statement and books, if you have any that you're downloading from your bank online, or if you are subscribed to getting the statements to your office, or you have any canceled checks, detailed duplicate deposit slips, these are some things that are very important for you to maintain file-wise. And also the bank statements are definitely your financial management apart from the file management system, but you're going to be ensuring that if you have a canceled check for some reason for a client that you gave a settlement payout, or if you have a detailed duplicate deposit slip, it is always best to maintain them as part of both financial management as well as keep a copy in their client's file or matter if it's a matter specific. Preparation of financial statements, this is something that should be automatic if you're using a program like, a practice management solution like uLaw, but if you're using something of your own or doing something of your own, let's say by using a spreadsheet, you will have to create these financial statements using some templates that's available online or on your own, by having a basic debit credit double entry system where all your income and expenses are linked, and you're able to gauge your firm's health from those specific reports. So with maintaining these records, where are you led to? Where is the time when it comes to giving Law Society the required reports from the data that you have maintained under the financial management? Now, most auditors look for these specific documents that's mentioned on this slide. Could be client ledgers, could be the journals, their receipts journals, disbursements journal, their reconciliation reports, their fee books, expense book. Form 9A is that's specific to Ontario, but they're very important as whenever you do the trust transfer electronically, you're required to submit the Form 9A. And, if you're using, again, a program like uLaw, it's like almost a one-click button for you to download that form upon completing the trust transfer. Or if you're doing things manually or keeping records manually, you would be able to just download the required documents for financial management purposes from the website of your specific Law Society province. So you will be able to access your specific province's Law Society website, and you can download the mandatory compliance documents that is required for financial management. And the favorite one of mine, or even if in fact of auditors, are I would say expense books, they're even though they mean less, but they actually represent more, where it's not only showing your client's data, but it's also going to be showing the financial data of your business, because the expense book will record both business expense as well as disbursements. So these are some, I would say, definitely some additional benefits of having any practice management software that provides you these templates, or rather these documents that you don't have to worry about downloading from online, some website, or creating your own templates, so on and so forth. So the next important aspect before I move on to business management, I would like to say the most important of all that we have covered here, financial management. If you have any details that you think will help you or your practice, or if any of you are being, here on a spot audit or anything to do with Law Society audit, whether you're a uLaw user or not, you could definitely email us on or reach out to us on our website. We have chat, or if you're a uLaw user, you could definitely send us an email, and we'll be more than happy to guide you with the right set of documents that you are required to submit on your compliance basis. Now, going on to the next one, the business management. Business management plays a equally important role as your financial management or a client matter management or a file management, as if those aspects cover your client's information, this one covers your business information. So when you're beginning your practice, it is very important to go through certain details at your end to ensure that you are going to be going with certain things that you want to do to keep yourself professionally compliant with the rules and regulations and obligations that's being laid out. One such is the software. If you're using a software like a practice management software, find out what is the most reputed legal software. Like, there are plenty of it available, but there are only very few available that has been approved by Law Society. In fact, uLaw is one approved by Law Society, as we emphasize more on the Law Society compliance across every stage of your practice, right from intaking a client to closing the file. Everything is available within the program for you. So you need to make a decision based on what is the most reputed legal software that is going to keep you compliant and make you safe, make you feel safe rather, with the professional obligations that you're going to be fulfilling upon taking some steps that you're required to. Now, while also deciding the software, you're required to ensure there's enough security. So each of these service providers will be giving their, policies, security policies, and they will be ensuring that, as a probably Canadian practitioners, you are required to know certain security policies that are being maintained by the service provider, and the data security is very important. It plays an important role. Now, if you take cloud services like uLaw, we have our own security policies. It's available on the website, but if you're already a uLaw user, you can email us and we could share with you the security policies that we follow or we have under our phone policies. And also, where is the data located? If you're the cloud servers, where is the server located? Whether for example, in uLaw, we have ours in Montreal and Ottawa, and whether, the security policies that is for file maintenance and regular backups are being done. This is something that you definitely have to take a look at when you're doing your software shopping, or I would say research before going with one. And the next one could be the mobile. If you're using, now we all use various mobile, being the tech savvy world that we are in, could be an Android mobile phone, or could be an Apple, could be an iPad that you use, or whether you're using probably one of your service providers using one of these technologies. So it's very important to make sure your mobile devices are secured as well, whether you lock them with the passcode, or you have so that you don't have to have a lock code for each of your documents, because several documents that you're going to be saving on that system, and it's very important to ensure you have a secure mobile device that you use, and that it cannot be hacked, or it cannot be, when I mean hacked is a big word, but when I mean even having your mobile phone open with some documents of your client that you're viewing from a Google Drive using your phone is also equivalent when somebody is taking a look at it without your permission. Could be somebody from your office, or could be somebody from at your premises. So it's definitely important to have a robust security of mobile devices, and followed by remote access. So the ability to remotely access email, voice messages are an important aspect to have your business management run efficiently. And it's also equally important to be connected with your clients from wherever you are. If your client is sending you some document and they want an opinion from you within no time, there could be something emergencies. So ability to remotely access is definitely one of the most important part of business management. Moving on to the next topic, we are left out with almost 5 to 10 minutes. I will try to complete the subtopics by then. I have only 2 remaining here. The one being professional management. We all know that, even though your practice management is, being compliant with Law Society, it is equally important to have your professional management also being fulfilled, where the completion of CPD hours, like the one today where you're getting 1 hour CPD credits, or could be reviewing the new legislations and case laws. There are a lot of third-party softwares that provide that, or you could just go Google it online and get the new legislations and case laws. And having your membership renewed with your professional associations time on time. And lastly, reviewing your professional conduct guidelines, where there are certain policies and guidelines that, as a legal practitioner of certain province, that you're obligated to fulfill. You will, or follow that conduct. You will definitely need to be aware of it, because being aware of it at least, kind of helps you know what you're required to do. Than, I would say being unaware of your professional conduct guidelines is not going to help you at all. So as much as managing your business, managing your finance, managing your clients is important, managing your profession is equally important to keep yourself live with the the conduct guidelines that's provided by your respective law society, of your province. Now, lastly, I would say there's time management and personal management. We will just keep it pretty short. Maintenance of to-do list, management of active files, and time dockets of non-billable time. So when we mean time management is, it's very easy to keep a tab of your billable time as you are going to be turning on a stopwatch and then keep a time docket on and then probably docket your hours or minutes spent on that file. But having a non-billable time like a flat rate or something to do with like a pro bono if you're not billing them, things are very important to ensure that your time dockets are being recorded at that time, and especially with a to-do list and focusing on your active files or active client matters are equally important, and ensuring that is part of the time management. And the personal management aspect of it is ensuring that you are satisfied with the services that you're rendering to your clients, and at the same time you're enjoying the work that you're doing. And there's the personal growth and there's the professional growth. You see there's a financial success starting with no clients to set of number of clients, and you have a financial success of your practice. And this is going to be in turn because you're managing your client finances, your file, everything where you spend certain time of work at a certain stage. And then it's like you work when you work, take break or play or, you know, take a vacation when you have to. So it gives you that flexibility to ensure there's a proper work-life balance that's achieved here, and the stress is being managed. I know we all need that, especially during this COVID time. Everybody's been through that, you know, stress management level at some aspect of that time. So I would just say try to keep your files and matter managed along with your, you know, your business management, including, you know, there could be organization where you have a nice file organization and management system. There is a way where you enter your phone and meeting dockets under a particular system in a calendar, or you use your scratch pad to enter those phone meeting dockets. And you have your own disbursement management. If you're using something like uLawPractice, it provides a very efficient matter management to ensure your practice achieves its potential and easily generate disbursements and dockets and complete the necessary documents that's required from a matter management aspect of it. I know now we are almost at top of the hour, but these are some things that I would request you to probably follow from an aspect of a legal practitioner having to fulfill the professional obligations for keeping them compliant with just their regular practice. So if you have any questions from what we've done today, for a file management or a matter management or a contact management, I'd be happy if you could put in your comments on the chat. It's definitely going to be helpful for a few others who are going to be, you know, benefiting from your questions. And like I said, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to wrap up with the session today. And then I will open the floor for any questions. I have already spoken about using the calendar to make a note of your meetings or your dockets or schedule that you have to ensure your business is managed efficiently, your clients are managed efficiently. There's a monthly review, there's a weekly review. Try to synchronize, if you're using an application like uLaw, try to synchronize your calendar with the program. And if you're using, you know, probably a program again, it will also enable you to manage your practice's finances very seamlessly And it's so powerful that end of the day, all that you're required to do is only the minimal data entry, and you have those reports under the reports section or under the document generation section, all that you need for your business insights or analytics, or as well as your Law Society compliance report for an ease audit. So these are some things that fall an important part of today's webinar. And I'd like to wrap up the session today saying thank you, each one of you attending the webinar today. It is definitely going to be very helpful if you go back and try to implement even a few of these points that I discussed in the last 1 hour with you. I know it's more like a monologue, but I assumed that, some of you have probably already made a note of your points here, important points that you have to take action. Probably try to get back to us on our email, support@uLawPractice.com, or visit our website, uLaw.io. There's chat box there. You could chat with us anytime. And sign up today if you are not a uLaw user already. We have a 30-day free trial. You could definitely make good use of it. We have our client success team and support team who can help you getting started with using a program. And to learn more, I would say visit our website, uLaw.io. It's going to give you more details on what is uLawPractice doing, enabling sole practitioners and small law firms to effectively manage their practice from anywhere, anytime, and using any device. So I'd like to end the session again saying thank you all for joining. Today's CPD session today's webinar is accredited to CPD, our 1 hour of professionalism. And the topic, as you see in front of you, everything practice management. So any questions, please put it on the chat. I'll be happy to take some questions. I have my teammate entered some details here. There are some useful links. I would like to stop the recording here, else it's going to be too